going to look at here is the basic controls of the Vega control unit, which is controlling the MGL V16 comms receiver, which is mounted in the back of the aircraft here. So we have some, basically on this particular setup, we have 4 controlling points. We have the 2 rotary dials here and here. At the moment when the radio's in the standard setup here, you see it's got volume above this one, and if I turn the volume here, it's changing the radio volume, not the intercom volume, but the radio volume. And when you do change the volume, it opens the squelch circuit, like you just heard a moment ago, so that you can actually tell what volume it's set at. So if I try that, so if I wind that down, that's at the minimum, I wind it up. And if you wait about 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds, the circuit closes and it goes back into the normal transmission reception mode. On the screen here you have displayed the active frequency, so what you see on the top here is what you are transmitting and receiving on currently. Current distance is active and it says tower on tower 118.300. Down here we have the standby frequency, and because I have the channel list set up and named, you can see you've got standby, but then after that you see the harbour CFZ, common frequency zone. What we have over this side is the second rotary dial, and above that it has the word freq for frequency. If we start to turn that knob, it highlights the first part of the frequency. If I start turning it, you can to bigger numbers. Push the button and it comes into the next bigger numbers. Like that there. We can change those to what we want. Press again, changes into the next one. When you finish, either press one more time and it'll go back into its standard mode, or you can just wait a bit and it will just swap over to itself. When you want to change frequencies, just push and release. And now it's moved it from the standby frequency up to the active frequency here. This is a nothing nonsense channel, so I'll just put it back at the bottom. The other input is here, which is a momentary switch for an up and the down position. And if we push down, it brings up the first.
Yes, on 804 Mike, runway 076.
What it does is it brings up the first frequency in the channel list, and at this stage it's
04 Mike, Newton H1027.
As you've seen there, I'll just quickly talk about it. Those numbers started to flash on the active screen. That was means that it was receiving a station. So those numbers were flashing just to bring your attention to the fact that something's happening on that frequency. So go back to this part here. So by moving this down 1, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, it just keeps rotating through the channel list. If you go past the channel you were looking for, you can lift it up and release it, and it goes back up the list. And what I was saying before about it being on Talpo is that if you don't operate the switch for a little bit, and the first time you bring it on, it goes back to the first channel on the list. In this case, Talpo. This is where this aircraft lives. And then the second one is going to be Talpo AWIB. After that, it's just whatever's on the channel list. In this case, Tauranga. This harbour. So we wanted actually the ATIS here at Tauranga. There's Tauranga ATIS 126600. I press and release, it'll start playing the ATIS.
27, forecast 2,000 foot wind, 060.
So that's the basic setup of the RATCOMs. If you press and hold, then release, this brings you into the menu structure, the basic menu structure. So exit set. If you rotate this dial, I'll just go back to the first one on the list. if I rotate a little bit back, is squelch. So that's radio squelch. So to change the squelch, you've got to come over to this side and you back it off, or you rotate it to the right, and it nulls out or makes it harder for the channels to come on through. Be aware that the higher the squelch number is like this, the more channels you're filtering out from this station. And you do get to a point.
Taxi open, crossgrass 07, New Zealand 04 Mike.
Do get to a point where it will even take out some of the closer ones. So what I do is I find that point when I'm in flight and go up to. And that way there you're pretty much guaranteed that you'll still hear the weaker stations, but you won't hear the noise coming from the aircraft and its electronics and having the squelch channel open. If you are struggling to hear somebody talking, then come into here and back this down a little bit. You may find they'll come through a bit clearer. After the squelch, if we rotate this one more turn, we'll come to the intercom volume, which is here at the moment. It's set quite low because I'm talking on the microphone and it's overpower the camera. So again, if I turn that up, you'll hear the volume go up. And if I bring it back down, the volume will go back down. Okay. After that, another rotation, you get into the setup of the comms, which we're not going to talk about in this video. You can also get into the setup of the head unit, and that's what we have for those. So if we come all the way back, leave it in the squelch mode, push our button. So when we need to do a go-to quite quickly because the squelch circuit's staying on or you can't hear something, one press, you're there. And you can just make changes as necessary. On this button, on this rotary dial here, is a button as well, like on this one. If you press and hold it for 3 seconds, it will start monitoring both channels, and it will flip-flop backwards and forwards. Because we've got the ATA setup that will play, and if somebody is then received on the active channel, it will mute the standby one, which in this case is the ATIS, and it will play this one only. Once this one stops transmitting, it will go back to playing this one, or what we'll see in a minute, I'll set up 2 channels that aren't being used. So that's on the ATIS there. Bring that back down to there. Once press and hold.
0126 Zulu.
Juliet Mike Romeo is ready for taxi.
Approach. Runway 07. Runway condition codes 666. All parts dry. Go around expect aerodrome circuit. Advise bay approach if unable. Surface wind 060 degrees.
Press and hold again and stops that. I was waiting for that to see if the tower were going to come back to him after his call. He was ready and put a steam, but you did see him momentarily there where it stopped receiving from the standby frequency and coming to the primary or active frequency. Probably not play around with that too much. Sometimes it does confuse the pilots. If I bring that to a slow channel, that's, you won't hear anything on that one. Maybe we'll go to something like Harbour. Might hear somebody on Harbour. Press and hold.
68, clear button break, runway 07.
Now you can see there is no numbers flashing backwards and forwards because no one has been. But when somebody does start transmitting and you've got one of the channels selected they're on, the numbers will flash. But in the meantime, it just bounces backwards and forwards between active and standby, active and standby. That's just a reminder to the pilot that he has got it set up in scan mode. Whenever you come close to an aerodrome, I highly recommend you turn it off there because it can be quite confusing to what you're listening to and who you're listening to, and especially if you listen to the ATIS and everything else, you're trying to talk to, well, you should be talking to the tower and so forth, so at one channel at a time. But when you're further out and you're flying between 2 frequencies, there's quite a good little feature there. So to activate or deactivate it, press and hold for 3 seconds to release. 1, 2, 3, release. Goes back to the normal mode. The final momentary switch I have wired into this system is this one here, and that plays back the last voice message.
Approach. Runway 07.
Albatross 68, clear buzzing brake, runway 07.
What you heard then, because I flicked it 4 times, I had 4 different messages that were sent. And what it does is it plays back up to about 1 minute, I think it's 60 seconds total. And it depends on how many calls you've had in that time to what it plays. And if you keep flicking it back, it just keeps going back and back and back until you get to the last one. So that's...
that I'm watching MGL. Yeah, Julie, Mike on is ready.
So that took a while for him to unpack the fact that he was actually ready.
Right up, guys, there's Julie Mike on.
And they're talking away. So those are the basic features of the radio. Very simple radio to use, very powerful radio. I won't go into about all the other features about setup and everything else in this. So this is just basically a quick...
Juliet, Mike Romeo, Craft 07.
Just turn that off for a minute and to the other frequency. Just so you get the basic idea of how to use it. So just a quick recap. This rotary button here, which has RX volume written above it, is the volume for the radio only, not the intercom, radio. And when you go to move this, it will open up the squelch circuit and you'll be able to hear the volume level through the squelch. And then when you're finished, just release it, wait about 10 seconds, squelch channel will close and you're back to normal use. If you need to use the radio in the meantime, just push the PTT button and it will just cancel it down. On this side, above the rotary knob button is the word frequency. So if you start to turn, it just brings the cursor up on big numbers, rotate to what number you want, push, come to the next number, rotate to what you want, push, rotate through the 25 megacycles frequencies, and then push for final time to either get out of it, or if, we don't want to do that, if we get to the end, just making up a frequency, and I leave it, don't touch anything, it will close itself down and go on to the next frequency and ready for you to flip-flop. It's a nuisance nothing frequency, so we'll just change that to Tower, and we'll move Tower.
New Zealand 259 Lima, clear to Wellington via flight plan route, flight level 240, Codan 3 for fire departure, go back, transition, squawk 5615.
Cleared to Wellington via flight plan route at flight level.
That's just like, we'll just nail that down a bit. And the other one is the channel, so looking down here in a standby, when I move it down for the first time, it goes to the first channel on the list, to the next channel onto the list, so on and so on, going down the list. If you go too far, move the switch up, and it comes back up the list. And of course, if I'm down, say, in Great Barrier here, and I don't activate the switch for about 20 seconds, 30 seconds, next time I operate it, it won't continue on from Great Barrier, it will go right back to number 1 on the channel list, which happens to be Taupo. And then it works its way through the list again to Great Barrier, and then on to Great Barrier. So again, if I don't operate it for a while, it goes back to Taupo. Okay. Good feature in some ways, and it remembers the last frequencies that you had dialed when you actually had the radio working the last time you shut down. It brings those ones back up again. Good feature about it. Not all MGL setups are done like this. This particular channel selection is wired into the head unit. The playback is wired into the V16 remote, which is in the back of the aircraft. So there's 2 different